Everyone laughed when the single dad farmer took the night shift no one wanted. The machines were broken, the system outdated. They thought he was just a desperate man trying to feed his kid. But by dawn, he'd quietly uncovered a $10 million mistake buried deep inside a digital system, and no one, not even the executives, saw it coming. His discovery didn't just fix a crisis, it changed his life. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Luke Harding's boots hit the wet gravel with a tired but steady thud. It was just past 10 p.m., and the cold night air carried a damp bitterness that stung the lungs. Floodlights flickered over the vast grain processing yard, casting long shadows that made everything look lonelier than it was. The others had already gone. Some walked off the job in protest. Others just ghosted the site after weeks of faulty software and botched batch records. But Luke stayed, 37, quiet, a single father with lines under his eyes and worn denim that had seen more winters than most of the crew. While others grumbled about wages and layoffs, Luke stayed silent. He didn't talk much. Never had to. His hands spoke for him, rough, strong, honest. He grabbed the clipboard barely legible from the rain. His name was the only one left on the night roster. Again. Harding, a voice crackled through the intercom above the warehouse door. You really taking that shift again? Luke pressed the button, his tone flat but resolute. Someone's got to. Inside, the terminal room buzzed with outdated screens and a humming processor that sounded like it was begging for retirement. The company had promised a software overhaul a year ago. Never came. Everything still ran on patchy code and blind faith. Luke hung his coat and sat down in the creaky steel chair. The logs for batch 402 were already up. Output metrics blinked across the dusty monitor, but something wasn't right. He leaned in. Production totals didn't match the export volumes. Again. This wasn't a fluke. It had happened before. Luke had noticed it. Not once. Not twice, but for almost a week straight, subtle, almost invisible. But there, he pulled out a crumpled notepad from his back pocket and flipped through pencil-marked pages, filled with time logs, weights, and inconsistencies. One page was circled in red. Another had the word Y underlined 4 times. He wasn't a coder. He wasn't even trained in data analysis. But Luke had grown up fixing broken things, broken tractors, broken irrigation pumps, a broken heart after his wife left. He'd learned that patterns always meant something. Outside, rain hit the roof in a constant, lonely rhythm. Somewhere down the road, his daughter Emma slept curled up on a worn couch inside their aging mobile home. The heater had broken again. He'd left a note on the coffee table. Keep the blanket on, sweet pea. I'll fix it tomorrow. Love you, Dad. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that tomorrow wouldn't be about heaters or fieldwork or school runs. Tomorrow would unravel a scandal buried under $10 million. And this quiet, overlooked farmer would be the one to bring it all to light. At 3:17 a.m., the silence broke. A sharp, mechanical click echoed through the warehouse, followed by the low whine of the main processor sputtering out. Then came the beep. The screen dimmed. Lines of code froze mid-scroll. Luke's head shot up. Most guys would have shrugged it off. Power flickers were common in storms like this, but not Luke. Not tonight. Not after what he'd just started to piece together. He leaned forward, cracked his knuckles and rebooted the terminal. Old fans groaned back to life. Green letters blinked back onto the black screen, and then everything was wrong. Production data from the last 2 months had vanished, overwritten with default values. Shipment records were scrubbed clean. Batch IDs that had once been red-flagged were now neatly filed as verified. Luke narrowed his eyes. No, he muttered. You don't get to vanish now. He pulled the same notebook from his jacket pocket. Rain-stained, corners curled. He flipped to the page where he'd written down discrepancies, dates, times, machine numbers, export quantities. One batch, 1472, had recorded over 18 tons of product shipped, but the machine hadn't been functional that day. He remembered. He was the one who fixed it 3 hours after it jammed. It couldn't have processed anything. He scribbled again, double-checked, then triple-checked. This wasn't incompetence. This was intentional. Someone had been quietly rewriting logs and rewriting history. Luke leaned back. His heart was beating fast now, not from fear, but from clarity. This wasn't about broken software anymore. It was theft, and someone very high up was trying to bury it. He didn't have the technical tools, but he had old instincts. He accessed the backup server manually. Through the buried maintenance login he'd overheard the IT guy mention in passing last year, just enough to access hidden logs. Within minutes, he found them. Dozens of export logs rerouted to a secondary, off-site account, delivery receipts marked to a ghost address, and all of it signed off by one name, Elliot Brands, regional manager, absent for months. The man who once told Luke, "Your job's not to think, just scan the crates and go home." Luke copied everything onto an old USB stick he kept for updating driver software on the irrigation panels. Then he slipped it into the inside lining of his boot. Same one with a worn sole and a rip on the side. He stared at the terminal. Everyone else had gone home. Everyone else had ignored the alarms. But Luke had watched. And now he had proved. The rain hadn't stopped, but neither had he. He grabbed his coat, turned off the monitor, and stepped back out into the darkness. There was still 3 hours before sunrise, but the moment he walked out of that barn, Luke Harding wasn't just a night shift farmer anymore. He was about to become the whistleblower who turned a $10 million scandal on its head. Luke didn't sleep. He drove straight from the farm to the corporate office, 80 miles down a long, foggy road, with nothing but the sound of windshield wipers and Emma's voice on the voicemail she'd left him the night before. "Night, Daddy. I miss you. I saved you the last cookie." By the time the sun cracked over the glass windows of Harlan Agrotech's headquarters, Luke's truck, the old Ford with rust on the tailgate, was parked right beside the shiny BMWs and Teslas of the executives. A security guard tried to stop him at the front desk. "Sir, employees aren't allowed up past." Luke didn't raise his voice, didn't even slow his stride. He just looked the man in the eye and said calmly, "Call the boardroom. Tell them the night shift guy just saved them $10 million. The elevator ride was quiet, long. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from restraint. Every floor that passed, every corporate poster about accountability, honesty and innovation, only made him grit his jaw harder. By the time the doors opened to the 12th floor conference room, Luke didn't hesitate. 10 men and women in sharp suits turned to see a soaked, mud-caked farmer walk into their polished glass kingdom with a USB drive in hand. The VP at the head of the table squinted. "You're Luke, right? From the plant?" Luke nodded. "Yes, sir. And you're being robbed blind." He placed the USB drive on the glossy oak table and looked directly at the regional manager on the screen in the video call window, Elliot Brands. The man flinched. "I don't know what you think you've found," Elliot began. Luke cut him off. "Don't lie. I traced batch logs for weeks. You're rerouting grain, scrubbing logs, selling it through shell channels. You used my shift because no one else was watching." The room went still. The CEO blinked. "You're accusing a tenured manager of fraud." "I'm not accusing anyone," Luke said plainly. "I'm proving it." He turned the USB toward them. "Everything's on here. Time logs, shipping manifests, system-level edits. And don't worry, I printed hard copies too. You'll find the ghost warehouse, listed under a company that doesn't exist, except on his tax records." Someone from the tech team was already plugging in the drive. Their eyes widened as lines of files opened up. Real numbers, real data, real fraud. Within minutes, the room erupted. Phones buzzed. Elliot's screen went black as he abruptly exited the call. The CEO stepped out with legal. People whispered. Luke stood silent through all of it. Just a man in a work jacket. Dirt still under his fingernails. waiting while millionaires scrambled to figure out how they'd let a farmer catch what their systems couldn't. The VP came back in and cleared his throat. "Mr. Harding, we owe you a debt. What you've done, it saved this company." Luke looked him straight in the eye. "I didn't do it for the company," he said. "I did it because my daughter deserves a world where good people still do what's right, even when no one's watching." And with that, Luke turned around and walked out. Back to the truck. Back to the heater that still needed fixing. Back to the only thing he cared about. Luke didn't ask for anything. He didn't wait for praise or payout. He just went home. By the time he pulled into the gravel lot outside his trailer, the sun had fully risen. Emma came running out in her mismatched socks and purple pajamas, arms wide open. "Daddy!" He scooped her up, spun her once despite the ache in his back, and kissed her forehead. "You didn't fix the heater," she mumbled with a smile. "I had a long night," he said, "but I think I fixed something bigger." Inside, he made her breakfast, eggs and toast, the same as always. He warmed a blanket in the dryer and tucked it around her as cartoons played in the background. The world outside was quiet, too quiet, until he stepped back out to grab his toolbox and saw it. A brand new Chevy Silverado sat in the dirt driveway, silver, spotless, engine still warm. Luke froze. On the windshield was an envelope, no name, just "For Luke Harding," written in black marker. He opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick cream paper. "You didn't just save our company, you reminded us what we stand for. You didn't ask for anything, and that's why you deserve everything. This truck is yours. So is our respect. We've started an internal audit, cleaned house, and launched a workers' trust fund in your name. And there's one more thing." "Turn the letter over." Luke flipped the page. His eyes lingered on a second piece, tucked inside. It was a scholarship letter, full tuition, private school, for Emma Harding. His knees nearly buckled. He dropped onto the tailgate of the new truck, rubbing his eyes with hands that had held hammers, wrenches and steering wheels, but never something like this. Emma ran out, confused. "What's wrong, Daddy?" He smiled, tears rolling down his face. "Nothing, sweet. We just got lucky." She looked at the truck wide-eyed. "Did we win something?" Luke hugged her tight. "No, baby, we didn't win it. We earned it." That evening something else happened. Something small, but louder than any press release. The other night shift guys, the ones who had walked off the job, came by. Quiet, nervous. One of them, Carlos, stepped forward. "Man, we thought you were just being stubborn. We didn't know you were watching out for all of us." Luke didn't reply right away. He just opened the tailgate, pulled out a spare chair, and set it beside him. "Sit, let's talk about how we fix the rest." That night, the driveway became a meeting spot, a quiet gathering of men who realized they'd missed what one farmer had caught, not just numbers, but integrity, and the seed of kindness Luke planted that night. It would grow into something bigger than he could have imagined. Weeks passed. The media never caught the full story. No flashy headlines, no viral clips, just a whisper around the region about a man named Luke Harding, who stayed when others walked, and caught $1 million theft because he cared enough to look twice. But the ripple effects, they were massive. The CEO of Harlan Agrotech came down in person, boots muddied, hands outstretched. "We want you to lead the Farm Technology Oversight Board," she said. "You saw something our entire analytics team missed. We don't want your silence anymore. We want your eyes." Luke didn't say yes, not right away. He asked for something first. Better wages for the night crews, upgraded safety gear, a new heater system for the plant break room, and guaranteed childcare options for single parents like him. Only after they signed all of it did he finally nod and accept. But Luke never moved into a fancy condo. He stayed in his modest trailer, kept his old boots by the door, let Emma draw murals on the living room wall. That was home. One night, sitting under the stars on the tailgate of his new truck, Emma looked up at him. "Daddy." "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you famous now?" Luke chuckled. "I don't think so. But Miss Peterson said you're a hero, that you saved a company." He looked at her, big blue eyes too smart for her age. "I didn't save a company," he said gently. "I just paid attention when it mattered." Emma nodded slowly,
like she was storing the lesson deep in her heart. The next day, Luke drove her to her new school, the one her scholarship now covered fully. She held his hand the whole way to the gate. Before running off, she turned and whispered, "I'll tell them about the man who fixed everything." Luke watched her go, heart fuller than it had ever been, not because of money, not even because of recognition, but because he'd done the right thing when no one else was watching. Because he didn't just fix machines. He restored trust. He planted hope. He showed that kindness, even in silence, was powerful enough to change an empire. And long after the headlines faded and new managers were installed, one truth would always remain: the single dad farmer who took the shift no one wanted became the man no one would ever forget.